Good evening, I'm Drew Berquist, and this is tonight's Headlines Done Right. Socialist Congresswoman from New York, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, was accused of making what many considered to be racist remarks last week while speaking to a largely black audience. Take a look.
I'm proud to be a bartender. Ain't nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with working retail, folding clothes for other people to buy.
In response to the outcry over her accent, AOC said, quote, "Ain't nothing wrong with that." Solid response, AOC. Meanwhile, crossing the pond, a suspected rhino poacher caught a rough string of events in South Africa. The poacher was trampled by an elephant and then devoured by a pride of lions. Rough day for the guy. When asked about the harshness of the attack, the animal stated, "What goes around comes around." And they further mentioned, and this is where it gets good, that they had planned to use bleach and a noose on the poacher, but apparently a member of the pride had lent them to an undisclosed American. True story. True story. Oh, and I'm being told that we have some breaking news. This just in, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange was drug out of the Ecuadorian embassy in handcuffs by a large group of police officers earlier today. Ecuador said that its decision came after repeated violations to international conventions and daily life protocols, whatever that means. Assange has not left the embassy since 2012 when he was offered refuge from allegations of sexual assault in Sweden, and apparently he hasn't bathed or had a haircut either. Seriously. Sources say, though, the arrest was devastating for Assange. He was most concerned about being separated from his friend. Sad story. It really is a sad story. The good news for Assange, though, is that he is well positioned for a role in the Lord of the Rings franchise should it be rebooted after he serves his 12 months of jail time in the United Kingdom. Moving on, according to new statistics from the Border Patrol, more than 37,000 people were arrested in March, a 37% increase from February of last year, and more than double the figures from March of last year. This figure, of course, does not include those who were not caught trying to come into the country illegally. House Republicans and the Trump administration in response continued to work towards passing legislation that would actually allow Border Patrol agents and DHS writ large to enforce the law and curb the growing crisis. The Democrats, however, have thus far blocked all measures, citing the fact that, quote, "It would hurt their political narrative, expose their true lack of concern for illegal immigrants, and by the way, they need the votes." It's true. It's true. When asked for comment about this whole thing, New York Representative AOC was still in character from last week, said, "You better believe we blocking that shit." Giving it to the people, AOC, that's what you do. No, seriously, she did tweet about the whole migrant caravan thing and the ongoing border issues this week. She said, "The far right loves to drum up fear and resistance to immigrants. But have you ever noticed that they never talk about what's causing people to flee their homes in the first place? Perhaps that's because they'd be forced to confront one major issue fueling this whole global migration, climate change." So I would say this, or it could be just the fact that you're an idiot and the fact that climate change literally has nothing to do whatsoever, not even a little bit, with caravans or immigration. So there's that whole story. I'm sure we're not done with AOC, but staying with the border, President Trump made bold moves within the Department of Homeland Security this week as Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen was removed from office. There are reports that this change is not what will be the last change in an ongoing shakeup over at DHS. Here to give us the latest is tonight's Headlines White House correspondent Mick Dougal. Mick, what are you hearing?
Hey, Drew. D.C. was definitely shook up by the shakeup this week, and rumor has it that there'll be more shaking up later this week from what's already been a very shaky situation. Back to you in the studio.
All right, thanks, Mick. You literally told us nothing. And now a lesson for those thinking of breaking into someone's home. A grandfather in Oklahoma is upset after his grandson was killed by a gun-wielding homeowner during a home invasion. When he discovered that the homeowner used an AR-15 to defend his home, the grandfather was quoted as saying, "That's unfair." Yeah. Apparently the homeowner responded, "So is having your night of binge-watching the new Netflix original series Selling Sunset interrupted." So there's that. Speaking of burglars, Beto O'Rourke, no, seriously, he was arrested in the 90s, for those of you who didn't know that. Stand-up guy, real stand-up guy. The Democratic presidential candidate made 5 false statements in under 1 minute during an attack on President Donald Trump this week. O'Rourke made his statements surprisingly not standing on a piece of furniture for once. Some of his quotes included, quote, "I compared the rhetoric that the president has employed to the rhetoric that you might have heard during the Third Reich." He also said, "Calling human beings an infestation is something we might have expected to hear in Nazi Germany." And don't forget this one. "Seeking to ban all Muslims, all people of one religion, what other country on the face of the planet does that kind of thing, or in our history, or in the history of the Western world?" One thing Beto did not mention conveniently during his emotional 1-minute tirade, the truth. Didn't happen. Didn't happen. An 11-year-old Long Island girl, Bella Moscato, was not allowed to select President Donald Trump as her hero for a school project in her 6th grade class. Her teacher immediately shut down the idea, claiming, quote, "Trump spreads negativity and says bad stuff about women." She said that while Trump was not an acceptable hero, that President Barack Obama would have been an acceptable choice, however. Her teacher's name had remained undisclosed until we were able to get a hold of it here at the studio. And as it turns out, Bradley Manning says he is sorry for restricting the First Amendment rights of Bella, stating further, albeit randomly, that he was really just upset over the fact that he was not permitted to perform in the all-student reprisal of Rent at the elementary school. Yeah, interesting turn of events, right? Something that, by the way, seems highly inappropriate. I don't know that they should be performing Rent there, but that's the story. Finally, this week, Maxine Waters expressed how she holds the gavel now as chairwoman in a standoff with Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin. Take a look.
This is a new way, and it's a new day,
Okay, well,
and
the
it's a
per-
new
the per-
chair,
okay,
and
well,
I have the gavel at this point. If you wish to leave, you may.
I believe you're supposed to take the gravel and bang it. That's the
Please do not
appropriate-
instruct me as to how I'm to conduct this committee.
All right, so you've got to watch the whole thing. It's highly entertaining, about 2.5 minutes. And allegedly, the whole thing started during recess and continued into the lunch hour when Mnuchin wouldn't trade his fruit roll-up for Maxine's baby carrots. Or at least that's what we can presume given the childish nature of the exchange. The root of all evil stems from the playground and cafeteria stall. I'm just saying. Hashtag do better, DC. But for now, folks, that is all the time that we have for you tonight. Thanks for joining us. I'm Drew Berquist, and we will see you next week on tonight's Headlines Done Right.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One American News on YouTube. And call your cable provider and kindly demand that One American News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.